Do you know what this is? It's the mystery object that washed up on a WA beach, and now it's got everyone talking.
A couple of weeks ago, treasure hunter John Ventura was deep in the woods somewhere in Brazil when all of a sudden they came across this mysterious rock.
What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too.
The Sumerian people, the earliest known civilization who lived in ancient Sumer in Mesopotamia, are incredibly fascinating and confusing. It is believed that the civilization resided in Sumer, which is now southern Iraq, sometime between 4500 and 4000 BC, after arriving from the south, having traveled through the Persian Gulf. Early settlers were experts in farming, raising cattle, weaving textiles, carpentry, pottery, and even brewing beer. By the year 3000 BC, the population had become incredibly advanced, building massive pyramid-like structures long before the ancient Egyptians. And by 2800 BC, the civilization reached its peak population, somewhere between 40 to 80,000 people living within the city's 6 miles of definitive walls. It is believed that the Sumerian civilization invented pyramids, the wheel, script, arithmetic, geometry, irrigation, saws and other tools, candles, chariots, harpoons, and beer. It is also believed by some that the reason this civilization was so advanced is because of their interactions with aliens. Interactions many claim to be depicted in the Summer's Triumph Tapestry, which was created in 1538 in the Flemish region of Belgium. If you look closely, you can see what appear to be UFOs depicted in the skies above the Sumerian people. Coincidence? Perhaps, or maybe something else entirely. If it is true that the ancient Sumerians got help from extraterrestrial beings, it is safe to say that not only did aliens alter our reality, they actually had a hand in creating it entirely, as the ancient Sumerians are often credited with creating the building blocks that shaped modern society as we know it today.
This has become a pretty famous photograph. The strange figure in the photo has been dubbed the Ilkley Moore creature. On December 1st, 1987, a former police officer going by the pseudonym Philip Spencer was on a morning walk in Ilkley Moore in West Yorkshire, England, when he spotted a strange creature standing on a hillside next to the road. He'd managed to snap a picture of it before it ran off. Spencer chased after it, but it disappeared into the brush. It was then that he witnessed a large disc-like object fly into the sky. It made a loud humming noise, almost like a helicopter. Whatever this thing was, though, it wasn't a chopper. It was whitish in color and consisted of 2 saucer shapes stacked on top of one another and took off at an incredible speed. Spencer headed back home and was horrified to realize that nearly 3 hours had gone by that were completely unaccounted for.
How's this for an alien encounter? On December 29th of 2012, a fireball appeared over the skies of Sri Lanka. A fireball that was later determined to have been a meteorite. A meteorite that scientists confirmed contained genuine alien fossils. Now before you quit your job and go scream "I told you so" at your wife, I should probably clarify that when I say alien fossils, I don't mean bones or anything like that. I'm talking about microfossils and algae that, according to Professor Chandra Wickrama Singh and researchers from the Jamie Wallace Cardiff School of Mathematics, are not of terrestrial origin, meaning that the fossils and algae found inside of the meteorites were one of the first confirmed signs of alien life in recorded history. Perhaps the most exciting thing about this discovery, other than proving the existence of life outside of Earth, is that it provides compelling evidence of panspermia, the hypothesis that life exists throughout the universe and is spread to different planets by meteors and other solid space debris. An interesting theory that may very well provide us with the answer of how humans ended up on Earth in the first place and why many depictions of aliens are described as humanoid. I mean, if we all evolved from the same thing, it makes sense that we would kind of look alike, right?
On the morning of March 30th, 1988, Helen Thomas and her mom Carol set out for their usual walk to work at the local mill. They took the same route they always did, but on this particular morning, things would take a strange turn. Out of nowhere, they heard a low humming sound above them. Before they could make sense of it, a super bright light beamed down, blinding them completely. When the light finally vanished, Helen and Carol found themselves feeling dizzy and nauseous, and Helen's leather jacket was soaking wet. but the ground around them was completely dry. They were pretty shaken, but continued on to work anyway. When they arrived though, the security guard told them they were hours late. In the days that followed, both women started developing blisters and rashes. It wasn't until years later that they reached out to Tony Dodd, a well-known UFO researcher. Under hypnosis, they revealed some unsettling details. They remembered being in a bright room, lying on tables with a weird net-like material holding them down as strange creatures with big heads and dark eyes performed bizarre experiments on them, even taking eggs from their bodies with a thin tube. One odd memory stood out as well. One of the aliens seemed fascinated by Helen's leather jacket, rubbing it on his face and hands until it was soaking wet. Gross. Now, hypnosis, I'm always a little iffy about that, you know, but the initial story of them being late for work after seeing the strange light and everything, that's all still very, very strange.
The glorification of Eucharist, or the Disputa of Eucharist as it's known in Italian, is a religious artwork painted in the 16th century by an Italian painter named Ventura Salimbeni. If you start from the bottom and work your way up, the piece starts off relatively normal, depicting a number of religious authorities gathered around an altar. But as your gaze meets the top of the painting, things get a little more interesting. The Holy Trinity, God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit, represented by a white dove, are shown sitting in the clouds, which would be all good and well and by the Holy Book if it weren't for the fact that it appears as though Jesus and God are being separated by some kind of large, spheric, metallic, ancient space satellite with telescopic antennas, a light at the top center, and a dial on the bottom left. While the depiction of the satellite has been highly debated, with many religious experts claiming that the orb is a representation of the universe, the light and dial the sun and moon, and the antennas scepter wands, many others claim that the glorification of the Eucharist is in fact proof of alien life and their influence on humanity. Or at the very least, this painting could prove the existence of time travel.
The Lizard Man. This next one is a full-on encounter with a reptilian being in Scape Ore Swamp, South Carolina. Usually anything close to an alien sighting is a UFO, and those are just unidentified flying objects. We really don't know if they have anything to do with extraterrestrials at all. But a humanoid reptilian or lizard-like creature, that sounds pretty alien to me. There's said to be a strange creature stalking the swamplands of Lee County, South Carolina, that being a big 7-foot-tall lizard man. On the 14th of July, 1988, sheriffs of Lee County were called to inspect damage done to a vehicle parked outside a home right next to the Scape Ore Swamp. Then a young man named Christopher Davis came out to make his own report to the police, saying that just 2 weeks prior, his car had also been damaged, only he'd actually seen the person, or rather the thing, that was responsible. Christopher described an encounter with a massive 7-foot-tall creature with 3 fingers per hand, red eyes, and green, wet, scaly skin. He'd been driving home from work one night when he got a flat tire. He'd gotten out of his car to fix it when he saw the thing making its way towards him. He jumped in his car and keeled off, but the creature was so fast that it managed to catch up to his speeding vehicle. Then it hopped onto the roof, scratching at it. Christopher hit the brakes, causing the thing to fly off his car before making his escape. When news of this report hit the papers, it caused a frenzy. More and more reports started coming in. The local radio station offered a $1 million reward to whoever could catch the beast, so hunters even started flocking to town to try and catch it. But reports began to die down by the end of the summer, and local sheriffs began writing off the supposed encounters as, get this, bear sightings, because if there are two things that look so eerily similar, it's definitely a furry bear and a big green scaly lizard monster with red eyes and no hair to speak of.
In 2008, a strange piece of machinery was discovered in a mine in Vladivostok, Russia. It looked like a piece of tooth wheel, kind of like what you would see on modern-day gear-operated machinery. The object had been found embedded in a piece of coal. The man who discovered the object became curious about its origin, and so he showed it to a group of scientists who determined it to be 1. Man-made, constructed out of almost pure aluminum, and 2. to almost 300 million years old. Two conclusions that raised countless questions. One, how did the object come to be? Because aluminum of such purity and shape are not found naturally. And as far as we once know, humans didn't figure out how to make anything close to this object until 1825. Of course, this has led many people to believe that the piece is a mechanism that somehow broke off of an alien spaceship. On the other hand, scientists aren't so sure, but with no other explanation of how it came to be, it's definitely a possibility.
In October of 1974, John Day was on the way back home to Essex with his family. The journey should have only taken about half an hour, but as he and his wife Susan were putting their kids to bed, they realized that they'd arrived home much later than they'd expected. An extra 3 hours had gone by. Over the next few days, the whole family started having terrifying nightmares, being sucked up into a strange craft before being operated on. John and Susan felt constantly anxious and confused. And not knowing what to do, John reached out to a local UFO group for advice. They suggested he talk to Leonard Wilder, a hypnotist experienced in cases of missing time. Under this hypnosis, John recalled driving into a weird bright mist that seemed to fall from the sky. He remembered seeing a bright light descending into a nearby field, then shooting towards their car. Before he knew it, the car was lifted into the sky. He then remembered being poked by sharp instruments. He also described the spaceship having furniture that was molded into the walls with no seams or joins. The next thing he knew, they were back in their car driving up the driveway. Suffice to say, the whole experience left them with more questions than answers. Tabby's star, officially known as KIC 8462852, is about 1,480 light years away in the constellation Cygnus. It was first discovered in 2009 and became rather famous for its bizarre light patterns. Observations from the Kepler Space Telescope showed that its brightness fluctuated in strange ways, with some dips as high as 22%. Now, unlike most stars, Tabby's light changes were erratic and unpredictable. At first, scientists thought a planet might be causing the dimming, but the dimming patterns were just too irregular to fit that theory, so this led to some pretty wild ideas. I mean, some think the star's light could be affected by an uneven distribution of dust, which isn't exciting in the slightest, but some scientists put forth the idea that the dimming might be caused by some sort of massive structure surrounding it, specifically a Dyson sphere, built by aliens, which opens and closes, possibly being used to harvest energy from the star. And that is a pretty fun idea. There have been a couple curious rectangular shapes spotted on Mars, and rumors and conspiracies started to spread online about these things possibly being of alien origin. Discovered by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, this rectangular object, possibly a boulder, was captured in stunning detail from about 180 miles above the surface. The high-rise camera used for the photos has a resolution of about 1 foot per pixel, allowing us to see stuff we might not expect from just a rock on Mars. Then there's the Phobos monolith, located on Mars's moon Phobos. The massive rock is about 295 feet tall. Amateur astronomer Efren Palermo first spotted it while doing an extensive analysis of Martian images. The size and shape of the thing definitely make it stand out. It casts quite the shadow, giving it an almost imposing presence. The monolith has even come up in fiction. In Alistair Reynolds' 2012 science fiction novel Blue Remembered Earth, the monolith is explained to have been carved by astronauts into the likeness of a wrecked spaceship. But, are these monoliths visitors from the far reaches of space like in 2001: A Space Odyssey, or are they just large rocks? In 2020, astronomers detected a mysterious repeating radio signal coming from the direction of Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to our own. Proxima Centauri is about 4.24 light years away and has at least one known planet, Proxima b, which sits in the star's habitable zone. The signal, which was detected by the Parkes Observatory in Australia, was pretty exciting. It was a narrowband radio signal, a type often released by artificial sources, so this meant, of course, that there was a possibility that whatever this thing was could have been a communication attempt from some sort of advanced civilization. The Listen science team at Berkeley SETI Research Center spent months analyzing the signal, though, and ended up determining that it was likely caused by interference from human technology. Likely, though. that still leaves a small possibility that it was caused by something else. Did NASA capture an image of a doorway on Mars, or is this just a natural formation? The image was captured on May 7th, 2022 by the NASA Curiosity rover. It clearly looks like some sort of entrance to me. Even looks like there's a set of stairs beside it. But is this just a case of pareidolia? Well, unfortunately, I gotta say that's probably the case, but I mean, who knows? I'm not here to crush any dreams. I'm just here to present what I find and let y'all come to your own conclusions. And the same goes for this next one here. This is a cropped view of an image from the Mars Opportunity rover compared to a Neo-Assyrian attendant god statue from the British Museum. It's easy to see why people saw this rock and thought that it looked uncannily similar, because it looks uncannily similar. Did Martians visit Earth back in the day and return home with a souvenir? Were these sculptures actually inspired by stuff aliens brought to Earth and showed us humans? Both are fun ideas, but just like the mysterious doorway, are people's minds just playing tricks on them? What are these figurines supposed to be? Would you ever think that they were meant to depict humans? Certainly don't look human to me, but it's not just because they're very old sculptures. I mean, they look intentionally not human. They look reptilian. The noses, or lack thereof, the eyes, if these were meant to resemble people, they did a bad job. Either that or these were really horrifying looking folks. But if they're not meant to be humans, then what exactly are they? The statues are often referred to as the Ubaid lizard men. The 7,000-year-old artifacts were uncovered in Iraq in the 20th century. There are theories as to what these things could be, but no definitive evidence. Unfortunately, we don't have any written records of the time, so determining the ideas behind people's artistic expression in prehistoric Mesopotamia, it's not really the easiest, but I'm pretty fascinated by the idea that there may have been some reptilian aliens visiting Earth around this time that people were depicting here.
Definitive proof of life beyond our planet found inside of a meteorite that landed in Sri Lanka back in December of 2013. Yeah. When pieces of the space rock were gathered and examined back in 2013, a shocking discovery was made. The debris of the meteor contained fossils, algae fossils, of clear extraterrestrial origin, according to lead scientist Professor Chandra Wickramasinghe. Because algae is technically alive, if Professor Chandra's science is correct, the discovery marks the first documented discovery of life that originated from outside of our atmosphere. While the legitimacy of the work has been debated amongst Chandra's peers, who claim that the algae may have been embedded into the meteorite during its time on Earth, the professor is standing firm in his discovery and has claimed that among the algae fossils he discovered were other organisms that are not yet identified and do not match anything discovered on Earth thus far, which of course is great news for those of us who are really hoping that Chandra's discovery of extraterrestrial life is legitimate and that the doubters are just mad they weren't able to make the discovery for themselves.
Are these sculptures of planes? They kind of look like stylized planes to me, but that would be impossible because these are thousands of years old. They're artifacts from what is known as the Kimbaya period, a pre-Columbian culture which was around from about 500 BC to 680. They were known for their skill in metalwork. I mean, obviously these things are lovely, but yeah, they really do look remarkably like modern airplanes. They have wings that don't really look like bird wings to me, and a lot of them even have what look like tail fins. So how and why were these created? Did these people somehow have knowledge of what the future of air travel was going to look like? Were they encountering beings with highly advanced technology? The official explanation is that these are depictions of animals, you know, insects, birds, that sort of thing, and yeah, there's a very good chance that's all these are, but I can't deny how eerily accurate they look to modern flying machines. And here's another really interesting thing. In 1994, a group of German engineers actually built scale models of the Kimbaya artifacts to see if they could fly, and guess what? They did, with an added propulsion system of course, but the designs worked. They were aerodynamically perfect and could fly.
The Williams enigmalith. What is it? Well, I'm not entirely sure, but it's definitely from out of this world. It looks a bit like a rock with a plug, but it's not a rock with a plug, and it's far from being just an ordinary rock. The object was found in 1998 by a hiker named John J. Williams. He noticed a strange piece of metal coming out of the dirt on his hiking trail, and so he dug it up. When he did, he revealed a rock with 3 metal prongs sticking out of it. It looked somehow man-made and appeared to have some kind of electrical component to it. Why? Well, I'm not sure, but Williams, who is an electrical engineer, claims that the electronic component embedded in the stone was not glued or welded into the granite rock surrounding it, meaning that while it appears to have possibly been man-made, because electrical components don't just naturally exist inside of rocks, especially ones dated to be around 100,000 years old, it must be something else, perhaps from somewhere else, perhaps somewhere out of this world. While Williams is open to having others research the strange rock, he does have a few conditions. He must be present for whatever discovery is made, and the rock must remain unharmed. Even with these parameters, you would think that by using modern day tools and technology, we would have been able to get an answer as to what exactly the rock is by now, and where the electrical component is coming from and how it was embedded. But no such discovery has been made, leaving the leading theory to be that its origins are likely not of this earth, and that it likely holds the answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask yet.
No one is exactly sure what this thing is. It's been dubbed the Wedge of Aiud and was found in Romania in 1973. Workers came across it while digging during a construction project. It was found buried along with 2 large mastodon bones. The wedge is around 5 pounds and it's made of aluminum. Now, this turns out to be pretty strange because aluminum wasn't widely used until the 19th century, but this thing is estimated to be much older, at least 250,000 years old. It's a very odd looking object. It looks like a modern art piece or something, but what exactly is it? Well, again, nobody really knows for sure, but one of the funnest theories, of course, is that it's extraterrestrial in origin, maybe having come off an ancient alien spacecraft or something. What exactly is Oumuamua? Well, we really don't know. It's a mysterious object that was first spotted in our solar system back in October of 2017. The name Oumuamua is Hawaiian and roughly translates to first distant messenger, which kind of gives you an idea of how unique this thing is. What makes Oumuamua so special isn't just the mystery surrounding it, but the fact that it is the first known interstellar object we've ever detected passing through our solar system. This means it came from another star system far beyond our own sun. When it was first discovered, scientists were trying to figure out exactly what it was. At first it was classified as a comet, but that idea didn't stick for long because it didn't behave like any comet we've seen before. Some thought it might be an asteroid, but even that didn't quite fit. Its strange characteristics and the fact that it came from outside our solar system has led to all kinds of theories, including the possibility that it could be an alien spacecraft.
While there is no way of knowing the exact origin of Oumuamua, we do know that it came from somewhere in interstellar space, which is essentially the reason between our sun's heliosphere and other stars' astrospheres. Basically, interstellar space is a word used to describe the areas of space that are in between our stars and their connected planetary systems. In terms of where in interstellar space Oumuamua came from, that's a bit trickier to pin down, but it's estimated by scientists to have come from the direction of Vega, a star located in the constellation Lyra. The determination that Oumuamua originated from beyond our solar system comes from its high speed, 196,000 miles per hour, and the direction from which it approached the sun, which it got alarmingly close to on September 9th of 2017 with a distance of just 23.3 million miles. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but to put it into perspective, Mercury, which is the closest planet to the sun, is situated 66.79 million miles away from the sun. Oumuamua cut that distance by more than half. That's pretty scary.
Oumuamua is unlike any object in our solar system, and that's because it's not from around here. But what exactly makes it so different? Well, first off, there's its shape. It's long and thin, often described as a cigar shape, measuring between 300 to 3,000 feet in length and about 115 to 548 feet wide. Most asteroids and comets we know about are more or less round, not long and thin like this one. The biggest question about Oumuamua is whether it's a natural formation or artificial in origin. Some scientists, like astrophysicist Stephen Desch, think it could be a fragment of something larger, like say a piece of a distant planet, for example. Another thing that makes Oumuamua stand out is its lack of a cometary tail. So normally when a comet approaches the sun, the heat causes the icy material on its surface to vaporize, creating a glowing tail of gas and dust that follows the comet as it moves. When we observed Oumuamua passing through our solar system though, it didn't have a tail at all. And it was close enough to the sun that you'd expect it to have one. So it became clear that whatever this thing was, it wasn't a comet. The Kecksburg incident took place on December 9, 1965, and it's often referred to as Pennsylvania's Roswell. On that evening, a bright fireball was spotted across 6 US states and even parts of Canada, particularly over Detroit and Windsor. Witnesses reported seeing a large object streak through the sky, creating sonic booms and even causing some grass fires in Michigan and northern Ohio. In Kecksburg, about 30 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, locals described hearing a thump and seeing blue smoke. The US Army and state police sealed off the area where the object was believed to have landed, but when search teams arrived, they apparently found nothing. Authorities claimed that it was likely just a meteor, but decades later in 2005, NASA released a statement saying that fragments from the area had been analyzed and came from a Soviet satellite. They also said that the records detailing this had been lost in 1987. The whole thing just felt very fishy. Was the object an extraterrestrial craft, debris from a Soviet space probe, a military satellite? Till this day, we still don't know. On June 21st, 1947, Harold Dahl, a harbor patrolman, claimed he saw 6 donut-shaped craft hovering over Maury Island, Washington. According to Dahl, one of these craft began releasing debris that resembled light metal, which he said caused injuries to his dog and a crew member. A man named Kenneth Arnold heard about the story, and having just recently reported seeing unidentified flying objects himself, he was pretty interested in the case. Arnold interviewed Dahl and his fellow crew member Fred Chrisman. They showed him fragments of what they said came from this UFO. The US Air Force flew in to investigate, but then their plane mysteriously crashed, killing both the officers inside. Then the FBI concluded that the sighting had been a hoax. Dahl himself allegedly told investigators that if questioned, he would claim it was all made up to avoid any trouble. Edward Ruppelt, the head of Project Blue Book, later characterized the Maury Island incident as the dirtiest hoax in UFO history. But was it just a hoax? Some think that the hoax explanation may have been a cover-up to distract from something bigger, like military operations or technology that the government wanted to keep secret. On the night of March 24th, 1967, something happened at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. Robert Salas, a then 26-year-old US Air Force lieutenant, was in a secure underground launch control center overseeing 10 Minutemen intercontinental ballistic missiles when everything went dark. Just before the missile systems failed, a security officer on the surface frantically called Salas, saying that there was a glowing oval-shaped object hovering above the base. Apparently the object exhibited strange movements. It had stopped suddenly and made sharp turns that no aircraft at the time would have been capable of making. Salas felt that they were under attack, but not by any known threat. I mean, what type of technology could have disabled the missiles? Within 10 seconds, all 10 missiles had just disabled at the same time. This had never happened before. After the incident, Salas was instructed not to discuss what happened and signed a non-disclosure agreement. For decades, he kept quiet, but in the mid-90s, he started sharing this story. He later discovered that just 8 days prior to his experience, another similar incident had occurred at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, where 10 more missiles were disabled. Salas estimates that within a 6-month span, a total of 30 nuclear missiles were affected. Official Air Force documents declassified in 1996 confirmed these events at Malmstorm. One of the most talked about topics in recent years is the Navy's released UFO videos. In December of 2017, the New York Times revealed 3 videos recorded by US Navy pilots that were encounters with mysterious flying objects. The videos, named FLIR-1, Gimbal, and Go Fast, were filmed during training exercises off the coast of San Diego and East Coast. The footage showed UAPs moving at incredible speeds, performing all these maneuvers that didn't look like any known aircraft. The objects appeared to be flying against the wind, changing direction instantly, and looked to have no visible propulsion. The Navy pilots used advanced infrared cameras capturing the heat signatures of these objects. In the gimbal video, you can even hear how amazed and shocked the pilots are. In 2019, the Pentagon officially released these videos, confirming they were authentic, and stated that they were part of a larger program to investigate UAPs. The US Department of Defense established the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force to assess these encounters and any potential threats they might pose to national security. What's fascinating is that some military personnel, including former Navy pilot David Fravor, have come forward describing their experiences with these UAPs, saying that these encounters are still unexplained. The Belgian UFO waves spanned from November of 1989 to April of 1990. It all started on November 29th, 1989, with reports of large triangular objects flying at low altitudes across Belgium. A lot of the witnesses described these crafts as having lights underneath. On the night of March 30th to the 31st of 1990, the Control Reporting Center in the village of Glans received reports of unusual lights moving through the sky. In response, 2 fighter jets were sent to investigate. The pilots were able to get radar locks on targets, but they reported seeing nothing unusual. Over the following weeks, 143 people or so reported seeing something in the sky that night, but all these accounts came in after the fact. Eyewitnesses claimed to see 4 lights in a square formation making erratic movements before disappearing. Some believe the Belgian UFO wave case was a genuine UFO. Others think that this could be a case of mass hysteria, but what do you all think?
Number 10, the Earth's core. I know we all want to get into some creepy, spooky stuff, but let's start with a little mini science lesson. The Earth's crust is the second highest layer of the Earth, only being underneath the sea level. Then we have the mantle and the cores, which are incredibly hot, and we really can't explore because, well, our machinery would likely just melt. The core is the very center of the Earth and the hottest, around 5,200 degrees Celsius, and here's where it gets weird. Scientists discovered that the core of the Earth is actually asymmetrical. They discovered that seismic waves caused by earthquakes travel faster through the core going north and south than they do going east and west. This causes the iron that solidifies on the sides of the core to grow more on one side and leaving the core lopsided. Scientists actually have no idea why this is happening, though I think it's because there's an ancient colony of dinosaurs living down there, or something. I think I saw a documentary on it once. Number 9, the Devil's Claw. In the 1980s, a group of explorers took to New Zealand to look underneath the mountain. What they found was probably something that they never would have expected. Eventually they came upon pieces of bones, attached to flesh, attached to what looked like a dinosaur's claw. It had 3 long fingers, each with their own long pointed claw, forming an entire hand. But like most dinosaur bones, this one didn't look like it had been dead for centuries, instead looking like it had only died very recently. The whole team was now stuck in this deep dark cave under a mountain, surrounded by remains of what appeared to be some sort of modern dinosaur or monster. Some people that have seen the hand say that it reminds them of the devil, and looks like it is his hand that somehow appeared in the ground of New Zealand. Others believing it to come from an ancient bird that used to roam there. Number 8, the Betz Mystery Sphere. The so-called Betz Mystery Sphere was found in the 70s and is exactly as its name suggests, a sphere, being completely smooth except for a triangle triangular symbol. When they found it, they thought it was space junk and they picked it up and took it home. But then they noticed it had some strange properties, like seeming to hum and resonate with certain noises like guitar playing. They also realized that when rolled, it would change directions on its own and often return back to where it had started. When this was discovered, the Betz family were swarmed by media wanting to get a look at the mystery sphere. Many people witnessing the sphere's strange activities and the way it would completely change directions in no time at all with no outside influence. To this day, it's not known what the Betz mystery sphere actually was. It's still a mystery, some people citing it as some sort of alien orb. Unfortunately, we probably never will get a true answer as the current whereabouts of the sphere are unknown. Number 7. Prosthetics. Archaeologists are no strangers to digging up weird bodies and burial sites, but this one seemed especially strange. In the north of Italy, they found a body, among others, that seemed to come from the 6th to 8th century. Obviously, this alone isn't weird, they find bodies all the time. What was weird is that the man had an amputated hand and he had a knife as his prosthetic. Within the grave, they also found the skeleton of a headless horse and several greyhound dogs. Upon examining the man, they found that his body was an incredible story of survival for a person who had received an amputation before proper medical practices and antibiotics existed. They knew that the knife was a prosthetic and not just something he'd been buried with because the arm and knife both showed the signs of having been attached for a long time. Personally, I think this guy was probably the inspiration for Merle Dixon on The Walking Dead. Number 6. The Black Sarcophagus. Around 4 years ago, a meme went around the internet about drinking the sarcophagus juice. So where did that come from? The juice came from the Black Sarcophagus. In summer of 2018, they found a massive black granite sarcophagus buried deep in Egypt, untouched for around 2,000 years. Many people believed that the sarcophagus would contain some deadly curse and that we should not open it. But they did open it and they found, well, juice. It contained 3 skeletons and a red-brown sewage-like liquid, apparently giving off a completely unbearable stench. It was so bad that when they first opened it only 2 inches, everyone vacated the premises. So did the tomb have a curse in it? Well, one of the archaeologists said the following: "We've opened it and thank God the world has not fallen into darkness." Well, I think he may have said that a bit prematurely. With the state of the world today, we may want to go back and consider that maybe it was the sarcophagus juice that cursed us. Number 5. Williams Enigmalith. In the late 1990s, an electrical engineer called John J. Williams was on a hike when he saw a strange rock sticking out of the ground. How it would have looked different from any other rock on a hike, I'm not sure, but he proceeded to dig it up, and he found that it was in fact very strange. That's because it appeared to have a metal piece attached to it, resembling the male end of an electrical plug. It became known as the Williams Enigmalith. Enigmalith being a combination of the words enigma and monolith. He consulted both an engineer and a geologist to take a look at the rock, and they revealed that the electrical component within the granite showed no sign of ever having been glued or welded. The rock itself looking to be around 100,000 years old. Williams has apparently encouraged scientists to examine the rock, but none have ever stepped up to do so. Maybe because they don't want us to know the truth about it. Number 4. Alien skulls. If you've seen Indiana Jones, then you're probably familiar with the concept of the crystal skulls. Skulls with elongated heads that are going to be used to somehow conquer the world or something. Well, it turns out that these skulls aren't just a work of fiction, and if you sat around watching History Channel with your dad as a kid, then you may have seen the special they did about the search for the real crystal skulls. Well, in a Mexican graveyard, researchers found a total of 25 skulls, 13 of them having these long-headed malformations. When you look at pictures of them, they definitely look like they must be something alien, coming from another planet. Researchers, however, believe that this comes from a cultural practice of stretching the skull, as it was maybe a sign of higher social status. Personally, I'm gonna keep believing it was aliens. So far, no real confirmed crystal skulls have actually been found, but maybe someday they will. Number 3. Antikythera mechanism. In the early 1900s, this 2,000-year-old artifact was found off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera. It is shaped like a circular gear with other mechanisms seeming to attach to it. Scientists have been trying for decades to try and figure out what this is and what it could have possibly been used for around 2,000 years ago. Some describing it to be the first first ever computer. While it may not look like a work of art to you, a professor at Cardiff University said it was extraordinary, describing how everything was perfect and seemed to be done very carefully, even going so far as to compare it to the Mona Lisa. Upon close study, it seems to track the solar system, like the time of day as well as even eclipses. It's the most complex piece of machinery from its era, and nothing similar came around for a very long time. Some people bringing into question the idea that humans had some sort of outside influence to help build this computer. Number 2. The Voynich Manuscript. If you're a fan of rare books, then this one is for you. The Voynich Manuscript was rediscovered in the early 1900s, though it had previously circulated through the hands of emperors and rulers. To this day, we don't actually know what the book says, as it is written in an indecipherable language and its illustrations are just as confusing. The pictures include things like otherworldly plants, non-existent constellations, and naked women swimming through strange tubes and green baths. Almost every page includes these fantastical drawings and strange texts about things that seem like they must come from another world. The book was written back in the 15th to 16th century, and perhaps the person who wrote it had a window to another planet, or perhaps a parallel universe. Copies of the manuscript are now available to purchase, along with historical and scientific perspectives on the book, if you're interested in taking a look for yourself. Number 1. Vampire skeletons. Vampire imagery and stories have been around for centuries, even spanning all the way back to the Bible if you saw my other video on that. But as it stands, we don't really have any true evidence or proof of the existence of vampires, unless you think the Twilight series was a documentary. In Poland, one team excavated a group of bodies that seemed to date back to the 14th century. Again, not super weird, their job is basically finding bodies. But what was different about these ones is that they appear to have been taken apart after their death, not by grave robbers or site disturbers, but immediately after they had died and were being buried. They had their heads removed and had been punctured through the spine, their heads being held under large stones. Researchers believe that this is due to the fear of vampires, and the people burying them believed them to be blood-sucking monsters and buried them this way to prevent them from ever rising up again. Well, I guess it worked.
On July 11, 1991, Mexico City experienced a total solar eclipse, but as the sky darkened, people down below saw something they'd never been expecting to see. Guillermo Aragon, a television executive, was filming the eclipse from his rooftop when he noticed a strange object hovering above. His footage caught the attention of Jaime Maussan, a well-known Mexican journalist. He described his reaction saying, "When I saw it, I said, oh my god, this is a UFO, a real UFO." 8 days later, Maussan aired the footage in a special broadcast. The response was overwhelming, with the network receiving 40,000 calls at once. Viewers began sending in their own videos too, and at least 7 showed similar objects in the sky. One 19-year-old student named Eric Aguilar described seeing a white dot that transformed into a larger, shining object. Meanwhile, 60 miles away, businessman Luis Lara captured another video of a metallic object. Maussan noted that many of these reports and videos were very similar. It looked like people had spotted the same UFO at different locations. 2 months later, engineer Vicente Sanchez recorded another shiny object during a military air show, describing its undulating movement, and a year after that, a similar object appeared at the same air show, moving against the wind. Since that eclipse, Mexico has just seen thousands of UFO sightings, like this next one. Another one of the most fascinating UFO sightings in Mexico took place on March 5th of 2004, when Mexican Air Force pilots came across a series of mysterious glowing objects over southern Campeche state. They spotted a total of 11 unidentified flying objects and quickly started filming them as they hovered around in their jet. The footage goes on for a long time. You get to see these things clearly gliding across the sky at high speed in this organized formation. This was definitely not your typical flash in the sky kind of sighting. The pilots attempted to follow the objects, but they eventually vanished from sight. Project Sign was an official U.S. government study on UFOs initiated by the United States Air Force in 1948. The project was an early attempt to investigate the growing number of unidentified flying object sightings following World War II. Project Sign was established under Air Force General Nathan Twining, head of the Air Technical Service Command. Its primary goal was to collect and evaluate all available information on UFO sightings. There was a lot of paranoia surrounding UFOs at this time. This was right after World War II, and many thought that these mysterious objects could pose a real risk. On April 27, 1949, the Air Force released a report summarizing what they'd gathered so far. The document indicated that some UFOs seemed to be genuine aircraft, but that there wasn't enough evidence to determine their origin. Most sightings were explained as misidentified objects, though, but the report did call for an ongoing investigation. Retired Air Force Captain Edward J. Ruppelt later claimed in his 1956 book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, that Project Sign had produced an estimate of the situation, suggesting an extraterrestrial origin for these UFOs. But General Hoyt Vandenberg, the chief of staff at the Air Force, ended up shutting down the project because of a lack of any proof. Following Project Sign, there was Project Grudge, which took a much more skeptical stance on UFOs. This project just outright dismissed reports as misidentifications, mass hysteria, or hoaxes. It seemed like they had a very clear agenda to discredit witnesses and make the idea of unidentified flying objects and aliens just seem silly to the public. Before Project Sign, there was Majestic 12, or MJ-12, a secretive group that supposedly formed to investigate the Roswell incident in 1947. Allegedly, this group consisted of 12 scientists, military officials, and politicians tasked with examining the alien spacecraft that reportedly crashed in New Mexico. Eyewitnesses claimed the craft carried extraterrestrials, prompting the need for a covert operation that would later lead to the establishment of Area 51. But back to Roswell for a moment. At first, the military actually announced they recovered a flying disc, but they quickly changed their tune, saying it was just a weather balloon. This inconsistency seemed highly suspect, especially as witnesses like rancher Mac Brazel described strange debris and strange-looking, almost non-human bodies being recovered from the scene. Now, interest in MJ-12 began in the late 70s when a letter allegedly from President Truman was leaked, authorizing the creation of this secret organization. Some documents were later found that referenced MJ-12, though the government insists these are fake. But two classified documents in the National Archives do mention MJ-12. Some believe that MJ-12 used advanced alien technology to influence human thoughts or even erase people's memories. It's also believed that MJ-12 was involved in overseeing alien abductions, allowing extraterrestrials to abduct people in exchange for advanced tech, which they reverse engineer at Area 51, which houses alien crafts and possibly even aliens themselves. Project Blue Book was a U.S. Air Force program that investigated UFO sightings from 1952 to 1969. It followed earlier programs, Project Sign and Project Grudge, but Blue Book became the most comprehensive effort to study UFOs. Project Blue Book collected over 12,000 UFO reports. Of these, about 700 stayed classified as unexplained after investigation. The project focused on two main questions. Were UFOs a threat to national security? And were they actually of extraterrestrial origin? The answers to these questions were made less clear to the public than the public would have hoped. One of the most interesting cases investigated by Blue Book was the 1966 Michigan UFO sightings, where a number of people, including police officers, reported seeing strange lights in the sky. The Air Force dismissed the reports at first, but people were so adamant about what they saw that they were forced to reevaluate the incident. In 1967, a panel of scientists reviewed the evidence and ultimately deemed the sightings, quote, not entirely explainable. By the late 60s, the Air Force began to wind down Project Blue Book, saying they just hadn't gathered enough evidence for extraterrestrial life. The project officially ended in December of 1969, with the Air Force releasing a final report that concluded UFOs did not pose a threat and that most sightings could be attributed to misidentified aircraft, balloons, or astronomical phenomena. But to this day, many believe the government cover up evidence of actual extraterrestrial encounters.
So where is Oumuamua headed? Well, again, unfortunately, we really don't know, but we can make predictions based on observations. If you watched our video about rogue planets, you'd know that most objects in the universe orbit a star. Those that don't are free-floating and pretty unpredictable, but not entirely unpredictable. You see, when Oumuamua came barreling into our solar system back in 2017, it got, as I mentioned earlier, pretty close to the sun. The proximity and speed allowed the sun to actually bend Oumuamua's trajectory without capturing it in a looping orbit, meaning that instead of Oumuamua becoming a permanent fixture in our solar system, it's now headed on out, and it's highly likely it won't be coming back, which is for the best, because an object estimated to measure up to 400 meters is not one you want hovering around Earth's gravitational field.
So it's unlikely Oumuamua will return, but if it does, what kind of threat does it pose, if any? Well, it came pretty close to Earth, and we were lucky this time, but it did show we have some serious gaps in our ability to spot and respond to space threats. If it had struck our planet, it would have had catastrophic consequences. It's estimated that this impact could have been equivalent to over 2,050 Hiroshima bombs going off at once. It would have wiped out an entire city or more in an instant, vaporizing everything in a 30-mile radius of the impact zone. It could have killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, depending on where it hit. And luckily this didn't happen, but it was a bit of a wake-up call because it showed up so suddenly and took us by surprise. We do have technology designed to detect potentially dangerous objects in space, but even still, Oumuamua showed that our early warning systems might not be as effective as we thought. But they are working on better tools to improve our chances of spotting and tracking stuff like this in the future.
Something strange about Oumuamua, other than the fact that we don't know exactly where it came from, where it's going, what it is, and whether or not what it is an alien spaceship, is the fact that on June 27th of 2018, astronomers observed a non-gravitational acceleration to the object's trajectory of about 17 meters per second. The acceleration occurred just a little while after Oumuamua's closest interaction with the sun, and so at first it was believed that the acceleration was caused by outgassing, a process in which volatile substances inside of an object evaporate as the sun heats its surface. However, no such gases were observed following Oumuamua. Furthermore, had outgassing taken place, it would have caused the spin of Oumuamua to rapidly change due to its elongated shape, which in turn would have ripped the object to pieces. So instead, it's now believed that the most likely reason for the object's acceleration was solar radiation pressure, aka pressure coming from the sun's radiation that propelled it forward. I mean, it's either that or the aliens controlling it decided to rev their engine.
Alright, so speaking of aliens, now let's talk about what you've all been waiting for, the alien hypothesis. One of the most interesting and controversial ideas about Oumuamua comes from Harvard professor Avi Loeb. Loeb is an astrophysicist who spent years studying the mysteries of the universe, and he doesn't think Oumuamua is just a natural space rock, but that it could actually be a piece of alien technology. He based his idea on the fact that Oumuamua doesn't behave like anything we've ever seen before, its unusual characteristics, which I covered earlier, and as Hannah just mentioned, the way it accelerated as it moved away from the sun. It all seems very strange. Loeb suggested that Oumuamua could be a light sail, which is a type of spacecraft that moves by using the pressure of sunlight or starlight on its surface. Light sails are a concept humans have already started exploring, so it's not entirely out of the question that a more advanced alien civilization could have built one. It's a bold hypothesis, but even though a number of other scientists figure it's probably something more mundane, many of them still think it's a possibility.
There are so many questions when it comes to the who, what, where, when, how, and why of Oumuamua, and so it's no surprise really that scientists are eager to find out more about it while it's still within our cosmic backyard. In fact, on October 30th of 2017, the Initiative for Interstellar Studies launched a program called Project Lyra to see if it would be possible to send a spacecraft out to Oumuamua to observe it sometime within the next 5 to 25 years. However, recently in 2022, researchers researchers have proposed the idea that a spacecraft launched from Earth could catch up to Oumuamua within 26 years in order to provide close-up studies, but as of right now, the project is still in the conceptualization stage, as in order to catch up to the interstellar object, the spacecraft in question would have to pass quite close to the sun, which would require extensive heat shielding, which would severely increase the weight of the craft and make the mission an incredibly difficult, complicated, and super expensive ordeal.
Another one of the biggest questions about Oumuamua is what it's actually made of. We already talked about how there was no outgassing when it passed by the sun. Outgassing can tell us a lot about what a comet is made of, mainly that it has an icy surface because the heat from the sun causes it to release gas and dust as it melts. So without that outgassing, it makes it hard to pin down what Oumuamua consists of. Some researchers think that it could be made of solid hydrogen or some other exotic form of ice that doesn't give off the same kind of tail we'd expect when it gets warmed up. But solid hydrogen is so delicate that it's unlikely to survive the long journey through space, which makes this idea a bit of a stretch. Another theory is that Oumuamua could be made of metal or rock, similar to an asteroid, but with a surface that's different from anything we've seen before. Its shiny, reflective surface might mean that it's covered in a layer of metal, which could explain why it looks so bright when it was observed, but even this doesn't fully explain all the strange acceleration and other odd behavior. Because Oumuamua passed through our solar system so quickly, unfortunately we just didn't have time to study it in detail.
Oumuamua, the mysterious object from interstellar space, is actually one of two objects observed by scientists that originated from somewhere outside of our solar system. The other is Comet Borisov, discovered in 2019. Borisov might very well be the most pristine comet observed by scientists to date. Like Oumuamua, we really don't know where it came from. Unlike Oumuamua, we actually know what it is. It's a comet, but not like one we've ever seen before. For one, it's incredibly polarizing. You see, when comets pass by stars, it's not uncommon for said star's radiation to affect the light reflected by the comet. With Borisov, that just isn't the case, leading scientists to believe that the comet is an undisturbed relic of the gas and dust it formed from. Furthermore, Borisov stands out because of its makeup. While comets formed in our solar system are generally made up of irregular fluffy clumps of material ranging in size from 2 micrometers (0.00008 inches) to nearly 1 meter (39 inches), the Borisov comet consists of compact pebbles about 2 or more millimeters in width. Hopefully one day we'll be able to learn a bit more about Borisov and Oumuamua, where they came from and why they are here. The Sumerian Triumph Tapestry, which appears to not only depict the succession of various rulers to the throne, but also the presence of UFOs hovering above the Sumerian people, is next on our list today. The tapestry was created in the capital of West Flanders province in the Flemish region of Belgium around 1538, and since then it has been the subject of many conspiracy theories, which makes sense considering the 2 alien spaceship-looking objects depicted in the top left corner of the piece. Now, if you know anything about the Sumerian people or the Anunnaki, you are likely well aware that even without the presence of the Triumph Tapestry, the Sumerians are a pretty good argument for the legitimacy of aliens having had a pretty prominent presence on Earth in the past. Adding the tapestry into the mix is really just the cherry on top of the extraterrestrial cake, because it confirms how the Anunnaki, the ultra-intelligent alien species that ordered the creation of the pyramids, arrived on Earth in the first place. If you don't know anything about the Sumerians, ancient Sumeria, and the Anunnaki, but would like to, I do have a video on them titled Ancient Sumerian Mysteries That May Never Be Explained that you can watch after this.
Next we have the Casso artifact, known as one of the world's out-of-place artifacts. It was discovered in 1961 near Olancha, California. While out looking for geodes, these rock collectors found a strange rock that seemed out of place, and when they cut it open, they were surprised to find it actually had a metal core inside. The outer layer of the rock was encrusted with a hard substance, while the inner metal core was a cylindrical object that looked almost like a spark plug. This was not what anyone had been expecting to find because the rock seemed to be millions of years old, far older than the age of modern machinery. So it sparked, see what I did there? It sparked a lot of curiosity. Some researchers think this is just a naturally occurring geode that somehow formed around a modern spark plug, but what if it's not the case? What if it's a piece of ancient technology left by an advanced civilization? Or even more interesting, an object that some extraterrestrial beings left behind a long time ago.
I'm sure by now we've all heard the theories that the pyramids were built by aliens, which is a fair assumption considering the fact that historians have been consistently unable to come up with an explanation as to how the construction of the pyramids would have been possible in ancient times. But what about other massive artifacts like Stonehenge, or perhaps the massive stone head that was found in the middle of the Guatemalan jungle in the 1930s? The statue dates back to before the Spanish Revolution, so prior to the Mayan and Aztec empires falling to the Spanish armies, which is strange considering 1, there is little to no way the Mayans living in the area could have sculpted the stone head and placed it in the area, and 2, if somehow they did, why doesn't it look like them? The statue's features do not mimic those of the ancient Mayans or Aztecs. Because of this, it is believed that the features once displayed on the head, which have since worn down due to revolutionary troops using the historic artifact as target practice, were actually the features of an ancient alien civilization that was far more intelligent than humanity, and that likely had a hand in the construction of the Mayan and perhaps even the Aztec empires as well.
This next one is actually 100% known to be from space. Back in June of last year, Harvard professor and theoretical astrophysicist Avi Loeb led an excavation to Papua New Guinea to uncover the remnants of a meteor that had crashed into the Pacific Ocean, and what they found were small spherical space rocks from deep in space, and there's still a question as to whether the object they came from was naturally occurring or not. What they do know is that the small spheres are made up of elements we don't have here on Earth. Loeb wrote, quote, "This is a historic discovery because it represents the first time that humans put their hands on materials from a large object that arrived to Earth from outside the solar system."
Finally, we have an incredibly mysterious extraterrestrial object discovered by the Betz family in 1974. That year, a mysterious fire had broken out on the family's property that destroyed 88 acres of woodland. When the Betzes went out to explore the area and search for the cause of the mysterious fire, they stumbled across a metal sphere with a diameter of just 8 inches and a weight of almost 20 pounds. At first, the family thought that the object might have belonged to the Soviet Union or perhaps NASA. They thought about leaving it where they found it, but curiosity got the better of them, and so they decided to take it home. About 2 weeks later, the family's son was playing guitar while sitting next to the strange spherical object when all of a sudden it began to emit a strange resonating sound that caused the family dog to act up. A while later, the family discovered that when they pushed the sphere across the floor away from themselves, it would change direction and return to the person who had pushed it. Not only that, but the object avoided being damaged at all costs, rolling up slanted tables to keep itself from crashing on the floor, and eventually it began emitting pulsing sounds seemingly out of nowhere. The strange behavior was witnessed by scientists as well as representatives from the military, so you don't just have to take the Betz family's word for it. At first, the Betz family refused to let the ball out of their possession, but after doors started slamming shut and music began randomly playing in their home, they handed it over to the authorities, who were shocked to discover that the metal ball was just that, a metal ball, or so it appeared. While there is no solid explanation as to why the sphere displayed such strange properties and caused so many strange things to happen, I think we can all agree that the most likely reason is because it came from outer space with a purpose that has yet to reveal itself to mankind.
The Black Knight satellite is an object that some believe is orbiting Earth, and that it's possibly an alien device of some kind. In 1899, Nikola Tesla detected mysterious signals while experimenting with his radio technology in Colorado. He thought the signals originated from the atmosphere, but soon realized they were actually coming from space. A few years later, an Italian inventor, electrical engineer, and physicist picked up similar signals, and Norwegian engineer Jørgen Hals noticed unusual radio echoes that took longer than expected to return. These echoes, known as long-delayed echoes, or LDE, are still unexplained. In 1973, a Scottish researcher by the name of Duncan Lunan claimed to decode messages coming from a mysterious satellite, saying it sent a star map directing us to the Epsilon Bootis star system. Then there's the STS-88 mission in 1998, where astronauts photographed what some believe is the Black Knight satellite. NASA, however, dismissed it as a loose thermal blanket. UFOologist Jax Valley has dug into supposed evidence of the satellite for decades, though, only to have his findings mysteriously confiscated. Some theorize that the Black Knight, if it really is hovering around up there, might be a time capsule from a lost, ancient, advanced civilization meant to preserve knowledge or technology, or that it's an ancient piece of alien technology that's been watching us for who knows how long. So, alright, I'm cheating with this one, but how about an artifact we've sent out into space in the hopes that it will be found by extraterrestrial life? And no, I'm not talking about sending out radio signals. I'm talking about actual physical objects called the Pioneer plaques. These are gold aluminum plaques that were attached to the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 spacecraft launched in 1972 and 1973, respectively. They feature pictorial messages that include nude figures of a human male and female, along with symbols meant to share information about the spacecraft's origin and its creators. No better way to do that than just show them a nude image of you. The plaques were strategically placed to make sure they would be shielded from damage by space dust over time. The idea for the plaques came about when journalist Eric Burgess visited NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, spoke with Carl Sagan, who'd been advocating for communication with extraterrestrial intelligence. Sagan embraced the idea, and NASA approved it, giving him just 3 weeks to create a message. Working with astrophysicist Frank Drake, Sagan designed the plaque, and the artwork was crafted by his wife, Linda Salzman Sagan, with additional contributions from artist John Lomberg. Pioneer 10 was launched on March 2nd, 1972, followed by Pioneer 11 on April 5th, 1973. We haven't received a response yet, but hopefully if we do, it's a nice one. The WOW signal is one of the most famous and mysterious radio signals ever detected. It's still talked about to this day, even though it was first spotted way back in 1977 and has never been heard again. While working at Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope, astronomer Jerry R. Amon noticed an unusual strong signal while monitoring for extraterrestrial communications. The signal lasted for 72 seconds and appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. What made the signal so odd was, for one, it was around 30 times stronger than your typical background radio waves. Some started to think that the signal could have been a form of communication from an advanced civilization trying to reach out to us. Whatever it was, it stood out so much that Amon circled the readout and wrote "Wow" on the printout, giving it its name. There have been tons of attempts to detect it again, but it's only ever shown up that one time. Some researchers have speculated that it might have originated from a comet passing by Earth. Others still cling on to the alien hypothesis, though till this day we still don't know for sure. In 2017, astronomers spotted an unusual object zipping through our solar system, naming it Oumuamua, which loosely translates to scout in Hawaiian. Now, what was cool about this thing was that it's the first known interstellar object to pass by Earth. Oumuamua is unlike any asteroid or comet we've ever seen. We don't even know if it is one. It was about 1,300 feet long and shaped like a cigar. Its speed was also remarkable, traveling at around 196,000 miles per hour, which was too fast for it to be captured by the sun's gravity. And the thing's brightness fluctuated as it moved. Scientists expected it to behave like a comet, showing a tail of gas and dust, but there was nothing of the sort. So what exactly was this thing? Well, some researchers were actually saying that it could have been a piece of alien technology due to its weird acceleration and shape. Others said it was probably just a piece of rock, a fragment of a larger object ejected from its home system. But sticking with Oumuamua though, one physicist had some very interesting ideas about it. Avi Loeb is a Harvard professor and astrophysicist who believes Oumuamua isn't just your typical space rock, but might actually have been a piece of alien technology. He looked at its odd behavior, the fact that it seemed to be moving in a way we'd never seen before. Loeb proposed that Oumuamua could have been a light sail, a type of spacecraft that propels itself using the pressure of sunlight or starlight on its surface. This concept isn't just science fiction either. Researchers here on Earth are already looking into light sails as a way to explore space. If an advanced alien civilization existed, it's possible they could have built technology like this already. What's abundantly clear though, not just about Oumuamua, but about space in general, is that there are endless mysteries just waiting to be solved. Let's just hope we like what we find in the years to come.
In 1998, an electrical engineer named John J. William discovered a strange piece of metal coming out of the dirt, and so he dug it up. What he had discovered was a rock with 3 metal prongs sticking out of it. It looked somehow man-made and appeared to contain some sort of electrical component. Williams later claimed that that electrical component embedded in the stone was not glued or welded inside to the granite rock surrounding it, meaning that while it appeared to be man-made, because electrical components don't just naturally exist inside of rocks, it was something else entirely. Furthermore, the rock was later dated to be at least 100,000 years old. Fast forward to today, and Williams is open to having others research the strange discovery, but he does have a few conditions. 1, he must be present for whatever discovery is made, and 2, the rock must remain unharmed. Even with these parameters, you would think that by using modern day tools and technology, we would have been able to get an answer as to what exactly the rock is by now, but no such discovery has been made, leading people to believe that the object must not have originated on Earth and is therefore proof of ancient extraterrestrial presence on our planet. It's possible. Anything's possible.
In 2004, Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Jim Slate, 2 Navy pilots, were out doing a routine training exercise off the coast of San Diego when things took a weird turn. They got a call from an operator back at base who told them there was something odd in their airspace. This wasn't just a blip on the radar either. Apparently, the military had been tracking this unidentified flying object for weeks. It would do strange things like dive suddenly or just hover in place, and the operator asked Fravor and Slate to go check it out and see if they could get a visual on whatever this thing was. And sure enough, after searching the skies for a bit, they finally spotted it. According to the reports, the UFO was about 40 feet long and was hovering roughly 50 feet above the ocean. Fravor decided to get a closer look and started descending towards the UFO, but just as he was getting closer, the thing rose to meet him before zipping away at a speed he couldn't even begin to match. And Fravor later said to reporters, "I can tell you, I think it was not from this world." There you have it, folks. Keep your eyes on the skies. You never know what you're going to see up there. I've been your host, James.
I've been your host, Anna.
Catch you next time.
Cheers.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. It's about strange anomalies that were found in the Amazon rainforest. We have delved deep into the mysteries of the jungle to see what we could find, and the answers might shock you. What are you waiting for? Click the video now to find out more.